Hello, Mark Laudi here again at IPBC Asia in Tokyo. Our next guest tells us he's got just the solution to find out how much your IP portfolio is worth. We know it's a difficult subject because everybody has a different view of valuations, but Pedram Sameni from Patexia seems to have the solution. Pedram, exactly how do you go about valuing IP portfolios?
So, first of all, thanks for having me. We have built a network of subject matter experts. It's a global network of 10,000 experts, and we use these people from around the world to do different types of patent research, to find different components that is needed for valuation. To be more specific, we use them for, again, valuation. We can divide it into three different factors: validity, infringement, and market research. So we use these people or experts to perform validity study. The first two factors, validity and infringement, is a binary factor. Either it's true or false. And once you find out the patent is valid, the next phase is to make sure it's infringed or not. So either of these two factors can drop the value to zero. But
if it's a no, in other words.
If it's a no, yeah. If the patent is invalid, the value is zero. If
yes.
It's valid and it's not infringed, again, it's zero. The one that kind of is a little bit tricky is the market size, and that's kind of the driver of the value, assuming the answer to the first two questions is yes. So to explain that, basically, I use the analogy for invention. I compare it to roads. Say you want to go from point A to point B, and there is a road. If you get a patent on this, basically you have a toll road, as an example. And you need to ask yourself, are there other roads that can take you from point A to point B? So if there are other roads that can do the same thing, like toll-free highway, then again the patent is not as valuable, and it may become even zero. That's comparable to design around for patents. But if that's the only road that takes you from point A to point B, and it's a big market, obviously the value of the patent becomes very valuable.
Yes.
So to find these, basically we use our network, and patent is a very complicated subject matter. Going from one patent to another patent requires a totally different expertise, and to solve this problem, we need access to different expertise. So we tap into our network for every kind of patent, and we cover all types of subject matters. And for some of these, we use a contest-based model. So for example, for validity and infringement, it's all about information. If you have the right information, you can make the right decision. And for some others, like we may just ask or get one expert for direct consultation in that particular topic.
Mm-hmm. So talk us through the process then. A client comes to you and says, value my portfolio. What sort of process do you go through, and how long does it take?
Yeah, so the process that I just described, it's for a single patent. If the portfolio is usually bigger, like say 500 patents, so for a bigger portfolio, internally we need to do bulk analysis. We have our own internal tools as well as some commercially available tools. We look at the entire portfolio depending on some factors, again, say citation, age of the portfolio, type of the subject matter. We divide it into buckets of patents or smaller portfolios, and then that's more manageable. And then we look at that using our network or crowdsourcing platform for valuation. Again, the key factor is those three markets: infringement and validity that we look at.
How long before you come back with an answer?
Typical crowdsource studies take between 2 to 4 weeks per patent, and of course we can do it in parallel, so we can have like 10, 20 studies in parallel. Again, the network gives us a scalability. That's the main advantage of that.
But of course you wouldn't activate 10,000 people for every single case. So how many people could you expect to see work on your case?
Yeah, on average, typical studies, there's 30 to 50 people. It varies depending on the subject matter, and people in our network, usually this is their, they do it as moonlighting. It's not their full-time job. So Sometimes they're available, sometimes they're not.
Yes. Now, clearly, 10,000 people is a lot. You must have a very big LinkedIn group, a very big network of people. I mean, are these all people known to you? Are these friends of friends of friends? I mean,
no,
in other words, how well connected is this network really?
So we build it over time. We've been around for over about 6 years now, and usually we also do targeted recruiting. So depending on the subject matter, sometimes we look at forward citation, backward citation of the patent to identify experts in that field. Usually those are the type of people that we're looking for. They have done research in that topic for 5 years, 10 years, professors, postdocs. So we reach out to them through LinkedIn or maybe some university websites and invite them to join our community.
And if you have 30 to 50 people working on each individual case, does that mean the fee is also 30 to 50 times what people can expect?
No, it's a competition-based model. So the fee is typical. On average, I would say it's about $5,000 per study. That's the reward for the community, and it doesn't go to one individual. We try to reward as many people as possible. But it's not equally distributed. So we review after this contest is over. We review all the submissions, and the best submission, for example, gets maybe 60-70% of the prize, and then so on and so forth. Like maybe on average reward 10 people, for example, per study.
So, I mean, in theory, you would get a consensus view of the valuation, but as we know, IP valuation is an inherently difficult thing to put your finger on. What about within your community? Are you able to actually form a consensus, or do you still have wide gaps between what various parties participating in the study come up with in the end?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for validity, again, we're looking for missing information. There might be one document, somewhere, in a library in Japanese that somebody can find it, and it's the exact answer. Same for infringement. For market research, we kind of need, especially like for future technology, we look at all the answers and we try to come up with something that maybe if it's a number, kind of the average number, we remove the outliers and figure out the best number for that. Yeah.
So in your view, kind of with this overview to all of these experts, do you think we're any closer to being able to pinpoint with great accuracy, almost predictive accuracy, as to how much a patent portfolio is worth? Are we closer to that holy grail?
To answer that question, I think the final price is demand and supply, but what is missing is information. So what this community can provide, and obviously it can grow, become one day like 100,000 people or more, it's information. The more information we have, the decision making becomes easier and easier, and then both sides of the buyer seller side can agree on some terms. I think the information is missing, and this network can help with that. In terms of the absolute number, that's at the end again negotiation between buyers and sellers, but information can help make that more clear.
Indeed. So to what extent is the final price arrived at actually in line with the one that your community of experts comes up with?
Again, that's a difficult question. Like the community, we collect the information, they don't provide the price for the asset. Then our internal team, based on the information we gather from all sources, we come up with a number and we suggest it to our client. It could be the buyer or seller, and we say like this might be in the right range, and then we work as a consultant. Then they take that number and go to the negotiation table.
But that's precisely my point. How often is that recommended number then actually adhered to?
Okay, now I mean it's never has been the actual number, but it's been like within like 10-20%. It's happened, yeah.
Where do you see this develop? You talked about 100,000, growing your network even further. I guess that process never ends for you. Maybe 5 or 10 years from now, when you're ready for IPO, where do you see your business?
Looking at the IP space, I think the challenge today is lack of agreements for buyers and sellers, and that's due to lack of enough information. And because they can't agree on the same terms, we see a rise in litigation, and that has kind of blocked the transaction market that should be there. So we're hoping that hopefully with the right platform that we're building, we can solve this problem and one day see a more active transaction market rather than litigation.